All right, everyone can see the screen? You still have a copy of the handout? All right, so
Yes.
this is a suggestion for what you would go through. And, building rapport, nobody knows how much you care until they know. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that's what. And what we're going to focus on today is what's called the needs analysis. And I have actually a little diagram someplace. And isn't that nice? Showing about the difference between speaking and listening in a typical consultation. And a lot of times when agents have joined me because they said, oh, I want to see you do a listing presentation, I want to see you doing a buyer presentation, they oftentimes were, I don't know, disappointed. Not because it didn't work, it was because I didn't make a presentation. It seemed like most of the time I was just asking questions, which, by the way, is the best way to do a consultation, is for you to ask questions and for them to answer. Now, you may have heard of the acronym FORD or the acronym FORM. And if you are wondering what those refer to, the F would be asking questions about family. The O would be occupation. The R would be relationships. Are you married? Do you have children? And the D or M, right, depending upon where you learn this, is either D for dreams or M for motivations. And some years ago when I was bored, I added a for UL, I made it formula, but then, I figured that was a waste of time. But these are the general questions you want to ask about, which of course are relevant to a buyer. Right? Do you have children? What grades are they in? How important are schools? Sometimes they'll say, well, we send them to private school. We really don't care. Sometimes it's important. Sometimes it's not important. Financial conditions. Have you had a chance to talk to a lender yet and find out, based on the amount of cash you have available, your income and your expenses and your credit report, exactly how much of a loan can be pre-approved for? Have you done that? And if they say, no, we haven't done that yet, you're going to need to have a lender partner that you could refer them to. Right? We work a lot with Jody from Rocket Mortgage, but I'm going to talk about getting your own posse together. It could be her, but you're going to need to have the different components. And by that, I mean, how about a insurance person and the lender and the title person and all those sort of things. And then something popped up here. See, it's in the chat. Yali is taking notes again. Good for her. I'll have to find out why mine didn't. I'm jealous. This is sometimes called a UVP, a USP, a VP, and it's essentially your value proposition. The UVP is a unique value proposition. What are the different ones? The USP, unique selling proposition. Anyhow, these are the services that you're going to offer. Now, I'm going to, in the longer version of this, and yeah, I have a longer version, where this is going to be a little brochure that you can give to people. It goes into it in greater detail. The component pieces, EXP, already has something pretty good, but I'm going to show you. A comprehensive market analysis. One of the things that I notice that many real estate agents don't do, which I think is a mistake, is they don't do a CMA before they show property. And I can remember, it was a long time ago, where I'm showing a house, it's like in a condominium, and the buyer says, oh, so what do these models generally sell for? I'm like, I don't know. Have there been any, like recent sales of this model, and I'm like, I don't know. Why didn't I know? Well, because I was showing property, right? And when you're showing property, you're looking for active listings. Isn't that right? You don't show ones that have sold. You only show ones that have not sold. So I wasn't at that time even looking at the others. I figured that if they were interested in the property, I could do the old, well, why don't we, go back and I'll do some research, right, for you. But they thought, amazingly enough, that I ought to just know that. So my suggestion is, before you show property, run a CMA. So when they say to you things like, well, how do you think this is priced? Right? Do you think this will appraise? Right? It would be good for you to have an informed opinion. Negotiations and contract management, exclusive listings and off-market properties. I've actually, in the longer version, gone through this, but I've got a booklet and slides and things like that. But EXP has a exclusive inventory. Off-market properties, which really means non-MLS properties, would include a lot of new home subdivisions, for sale by owners, expired listings, and we can do notices of default, notices of sale, pre-foreclosure, and we could do targeted marketing. If we know what you're looking for and we know your price range, we can find people that own property like that have owned it long enough that they might be likely to sell it, and we can reach out to them. Right. This, by the way, gives your value proposition a whole lot more than, well, when you find something on Redfin, give me a call and I'll help you write up the offer. Right. That's my value proposition. Right. It sounds a lot better if you're going to go dig up some properties. Coordination with all the others. And what I'm going to do, because it's true, we do refer people to attorneys, but we don't want to mention that right away. Unique selling points, personalized service, track record of success, commitment to finding the best value. I'm going to probably, we're going to make some other, if you don't have those, then you can delete them. You all can make a copy of this. Then another part of the process is education. Notice part of that is market insights. If you don't know this, the California Association of Realtors puts out statistics designed for buyers, which are broken down by county and most major cities. You might want to be in a position to talk to them about financing options or have somebody that can, and home search tools and property search functions. I'm going to have more to say about that in a minute. Service expectations is, how often do you communicate and how do you communicate? Some people don't like phone calls. They would rather get a text message. Some people don't read their email. They'd rather get a text message. How do you know what they are? You got to ask them. How do you like to be communicated with? I'm not sure this is. Oh, it's recording, I guess. Close for the agreement. All right, we're gonna have more scripts on that. I already have something that you could use right away. Although I'm putting together something that's more comprehensive, I realize that some of you might have a buyer appointment coming up. And we're going to talk about how to present that and things that you could tell them. Afterwards, a thank you email. Personalized thank you email. It also could be, a text message. It could be a handwritten note if you know where they live. Key points, relevant documents or resources. We're putting together a folder that has stuff from the title company, the lenders, the home warranty, disclosure companies, etc. And then you're going to want to follow up. Now, this is how it might go time-wise. Typically, when I'm doing a buyer consultation, it can last between 30 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how many questions they have. And in my long version of the consultation, which is more of a booklet, the reason I call a consultation not a presentation is because we don't want to just tell them stuff without it it's more of a conversation sometimes than a presentation. And so just because I'm giving you a booklet that you can use, it doesn't mean you have to go through every page and read it to them, particularly if there's stuff that they're not interested in. I would just, maybe not. So we want to ask open-ended questions. At a different stage of the process, we're going to want to ask closed-end questions. So for example, at the beginning, what kind of property are you looking for? Right? Where do you want to live? What areas? What configuration of bedrooms and bathrooms? What price range? What school districts? What? Most of these begin with a W. There's some H's like how, but most of them begin with the W. They're open-ended because you can't say yes or no. Right? What areas are you interested in? No. Well, that doesn't make sense, right? They have to, answer them. Now, later, when we're asking them other questions, we want them to be a little more closed, like when we're showing property. Is this what you meant by a country-style kitchen? Huh? Is this what you meant? Right? Is this what you meant by, the large backyard? Is this, is this what you, and then they're going to be saying yes or no, because we would use the yes or no questions to confirm our understanding of what they want. But at this point, we want to ask them open-ended questions. Be curious. Tell me more about that. Can you explain that to me? Active listening. Try not to interrupt them. Not, make little, oh no, I mean, don't overdo it. But one of the things you have to learn to do as a real estate agent is listen to things that you may not be that interested in, right? Let them talk, right? If it goes too far, then, and then the buyer guide, that's the thing that I'm putting together, right? And if you work at any real estate company, they have them. Mine's better. EXP has one. Mine's better. Just saying, right? And but it would give you something that you could refer to. It's not a presentation. Be helpful, not demanding. Focus on their needs. Prepare for a successful outcome. So pre-appointment, have a system an appointment system. Those of you that have made an appointment with me, I use a calendar system. And you get how many reminders, right? There's a whole bunch. There's text messages, there's a whole bunch of reminders. And what you're going to find is that if you don't do that, remind people constantly that there's an appointment, they're not going to show up, right? Sometimes, and even reminding them they don't show up. So you want to remind them. You want to have your buyer guide, your value proposition, you want to bring it with you. You can take it in a little folder. EXP sells folders with their logos on them. You could go to Amazon and buy folders if you want to. There's a place to put your business card and you can put stuff in and you can give it to them, or you can put all this in a Google Drive folder and share it with them. Confirm the appointment. Consulting hat. Again, not so much a presentation as a consultation. I think I've mentioned that a few times. So how do we know we've done a good job? They sign an agreement that says they're going to work with us exclusively, or at least work with us. My phone wants to talk to me. And that they made the decision, they know what's going on, and they've agreed on the next steps. Now, because I have to, I guess. How many kinds of buyers are there? How many kinds of buyers are there? And are they different? One kind of buyer is a first-time home buyer. Another kind of buyer is a savvy buyer. Now, that might simply mean they bought a home, but that buyer could be a different kind of buyer, because that buyer could also be a seller. And if you have somebody who says, I want to buy, but I have to sell before I can buy, and you're on my team, talk to me. Right? I know I've done videos about this because I've done videos about everything. But how do we structure the listing it and selling it with them buying it, so buying another property so that it all works smoothly? There's a lot of nuances in that. A third kind of buyer is and by the way, I'll just say a third kind of buyer is somebody that has experience buying but doesn't need to sell anything. Right? They're buying another property, right? Either as an investment or something else. But this may be the second time they've ever bought something. And then the fourth kind of buyer is the investor buyer, somebody who's done this many times before. Now, can you understand that knowing which of the kinds of buyers you have, you should modify your approach accordingly? So first-time buyers aren't going to know as much as any of the other groups. And by the way, if it's I'm selling and then buying kind of a buyer, there's a listing appointment and what are you going to net from the sale of your home, and should we sell that with a contingency that you're going to buy? When you buy, should we have a contingency that you're going to sell? What happens if you do all that? What's the best way of structuring it so that you're not living, in the street or staying in a hotel, and you can sell and move right into another property? You might need me to help with that if you've got one of those. Does everybody understand part of the discussion? And it wouldn't hurt for you to figure this out in advance, is what kind of buyer is it? Because the education part is going to be very different. So I put in some dialogue, right? For those of you that like to practice scripts. Let's get started. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. The purpose of this meeting is to thoroughly understand your wants and needs so we can find your ideal home or property. Now, when we're talking to sellers, we generally talk about properties and houses. But when we're talking to buyers, we oftentimes are talking about homes. But in other words, if this is a property they're going to live in, we want to call it a home. If it's a property they're not going to live in, we call it a property or a house. Right? And we do that because there's a little bit of different energy in those words. Right? Going home. We're going to find you your home. Right? But there's less emotion in buying a house that you're going to rent out. My job is to find out what kind of home or property will suit your lifestyle needs and wants. I'll educate you in the entire process. I wouldn't mention that, though, if they were an experienced, investor. They're going to go like, yeah, I could educate you. Answer all of your questions and see if this is something you want to pursue before we visit any properties. We'll define your ideal home, ensure it meets your financial needs, thoroughly discuss our expectation and roles in this relationship. My mission is to find you a house that meets your needs and is within your budget with the least amount of hassle and get you into your new home when you need to be there. How does that sound? Now, for sellers and buyers, it's almost always the same three goals. They want the best deal possible. For a seller means net the most money. For a buyer means negotiate the best price and deal for them. It wants to be done usually within a certain time frame. And then the third is with the least amount of hassle and inconvenience. So in the needs analysis, and EXP has a variety. I had them pulled open, but then my computer decided it wanted to restart, right? Of course it did, because I was doing a Zoom call. And it was mad at me for doing so many Zoom calls. Now, there are a lot of these on the internet. If you're not with a big professional real estate company that provides all this stuff to you, you can go to Breakthrough Broker or get a subscription from somebody else or just Google search it. And I clicked on the wrong one. How about that? Huh. So if you go to the EXP Marketing Center, and of course I'm going to have to sign in again, and you simply type in the word buyer. All right, there we go. And you just start by typing in the word buyer, just to see what comes up. Now, we're going to be putting together in the long version this thing about the commission structure and all of that. I have scripts for that. The buyer presentation, yeah, I'm modifying it a lot. The client services handout, I've got my own, which I'm showing you. The roadmap and buyer's activities, the roadmap is nice, we're gonna use it. Buyer activities, I have my own. I'm gonna show you a copy of it. Here's a buyer questionnaire. And if you click on it, this one is the relatively short version. And it asks them certain questions. This is a two-sided questionnaire. Right now, if you've got more that you want to talk about, this EXP buyer questionnaire number 2 asks a whole lot more questions. Right? And it's more of a little booklet, and you can put in your picture and your contact information, and it asks more questions, and it breaks the questions down into different segments, but generally it's kind of the same questions. Now, we're going to ask them questions. Like, where do you want to live? What kind of house do you want? And what price range? And all that sort of stuff. But, and this may seem odd, we're not going to get too hung up on their answers. I know this seems odd. But if they say, and I'm sorry, can we use the, I don't know. So, I've had people, I'm in Silicon Valley. I know not all of you are, but I am. I've had clients say, I want to buy a house and I want it within 8 miles of the Apple campus, because that's where I work. I don't like commuting. All right, so you first of all, when you're going through this with them, and you could either print this out, you could put it on a PDF that you could type in. There are a lot of programs that let you type in PDFs. If you're really into it, you could create a Google form or something like that. You could even ask them in advance if they want to fill out a form and send them all the questions and have them fill out the form. Sometimes they don't want to do all that. But you're getting the information. And if I were doing this in person and I had the printed form, I'd be taking notes. I'd be taking good notes. I'd be taking notes like I really cared about the notes. Now, once we're done, and they've told me they want this price within 8 miles of Apple, and they want 4 bedrooms, and they want a large backyard, and they wanted a quiet neighborhood, and and they only want to pay 1.2 million, which, by the way, there aren't any that fit that description. So what may sound counterintuitive is that our goal in asking these questions is to expand, not to narrow the choices. For example, so I understand you want to be within 8 miles of the Apple campus. Yeah, commuting, Silicon Valley, legendary. I understand how you feel. But let me ask you this. Supposing I found a house, otherwise met all of your needs. It was the right style, the right bedrooms, everything, right price range, everything was perfect, except it was 10 miles away from the Apple campus. It was further. Now, are you telling me you don't even want to see that property? Is that what you're telling me? You don't even want to know about that property. Then they're usually going to say, oh, well, no, if it's close to 8 miles, 9, 10, something like that. Yeah, we could live with that. Oh, all right. 4 bedrooms. Yeah, I can understand Zoom rooms for everybody. Yeah, I get that. So if I found the right house, it was, in the right area, in the right neighborhood, and otherwise met all of your criteria, but there was only 3 bedrooms. Are you saying you don't want to hear about that one? You don't even want to know about it. Oh, well, no, actually, we can make it work. Does everybody see where I'm going with this? Because what we're trying to find out is what is simply a want and what is really a need. Right? Really. Because if they give us too tight of a set of criteria, we may not be able to find them anything. And and by the way, if this has not happened to you, you haven't been in real estate long enough. But I've had the experience, this is before I learned to do this, where I had a client that told me, this is what I want, this is the most I'm going to pay, I don't want to look at it, And so I took her on her word. And then one day she said to me, hey, guess what? I bought a house. I'm like, you bought a house? She said, yeah, I bought a house. I was like, you didn't show me this house. I said, who am I? Why didn't you call me? Well, you didn't show me this house. Another agent did. A friend, by the way, of hers was a lender. And the lender had a friend that was in real estate. Yeah. And I said, well, how much was it? And she told me, and it was like $40,000 more than what she said was her absolute maximum. Do not show me properties. Right? I do not want to see anything over this. She bought one $40,000 over that mark. This is why there's a saying in real estate: buyers are liars. Right? There's a reason for that. Now, you could say, well, she's not really a liar, but I don't know. That's how I felt. So do you understand what I'm saying? If you follow their criteria too strictly, you may end up getting a call like I did. They bought a different house from somebody. Buyers are liars, Monica asks, and sellers are yellers. Right? Buyers are liars and sellers are yellers. This is not the most optimistic view of the real estate business, but that's, am I wrong? Buyer fatigue sets in. But what I'm saying is that your criteria should go beyond what they say. And if they say, well, why are you, showing me homes that are a little bit more? Well, maybe we could offer less and we could get them to come down. Right, which may or may not be possible. And we've got, thank you. All right, anyhow. So education, discuss current market conditions. Tuesday, I was going on about, knowing the market, knowing what's going on in the MLS, all that sort of stuff. And there's a sample dialogue. Right now, on average, homes in your price range are selling in X number of days. That's an important thing to point out. Homes are selling at 1% below the list price or above the list price. Right now, homes are falling or rising. Are there price decreases? By the way, you can search for them. This program is annoying me. Here, it's annoying me. How about that? All right. So this assumes this part that you're paying attention to what's going on in the market. Your value proposition, we've already talked about some of that. Explain agency. In case you're not aware, my commission is paid in escrow. Is that still going to be true? I think I've got an extra space. So I've got a more detailed script about this, but whether the buyer pays directly, what are the three options? The seller can pay your compensation, the listing agent can pay your compensation, or the buyer can pay your compensation. Right? Those are the three options. Or you're doing it for free. I guess that's an option. Now, of those three, all of those three are going to go through escrow. So when they ask, well, how are you going to get paid? You say, well, it's going to be, it's going to be taken care of in escrow. I'm going to get the money in escrow from the escrow proceeds, just like always. Through a seller, typically through a seller concession to you. Right? That's all I'm saying here. Buyer representation is a two-way agreement. It allows us to work together without any hesitation, without any possible conflict of interest, without any division of duties or loyalty. A benefit to you is that if I learn something about the seller, like the neighbors tell me why they're selling and that they're desperate, I will tell you if I'm your agent. I'm going to tell you all their secrets, even if it's confidential, even if the neighbor says, well, don't tell anyone, but I hear, I'm going to tell you. All right, just as you would hire an attorney to represent you in court, you'd hire an accountant to do your taxes, you're hiring me as a real estate agent. Now, are we at a point in our relationship where you want to hire me so we can move forward with finding a home for you? That's called a closing question. Why not? I would ask people if they're like, well, I don't know. Have you ever been divorced? And they're going to say yes or no. If they say yes, well, let's start with no. I would say, well, congratulations, because either they're not married, they've never been married, or they haven't been married long enough. That's a terrible thing to say. But anyhow, congratulations. You do realize that, a lot of people get divorced. Let me just imagine this, though. You're getting divorced. And if they have been divorced, they already know this. When you got divorced, let's say your spouse had hired a really good attorney. Somebody with an attitude, and a really good attorney. Would it make sense for you not to have your own attorney and to just use that attorney? Would that make sense? I'll save money. I won't hire an attorney. I'll just let their attorney go. Right. So we're going to talk more about that script as we get into it. But that would be, but right now we might as well just ask, are we at the point in our relationship where you want to hire me? I've used the term, I'm applying for the job of being your real estate agent. And they oftentimes would laugh. I said, are you ready to hire me to be your real estate agent? And they say, well, yeah, that sounds good. All right. Sample dialogue. Thank you for meeting with me today. I'm looking forward to finding you the perfect house as soon as possible. In the meantime, make sure you send me your pre-approval letter, assuming you don't already have one, all that other kind of stuff. And on it goes. Now, this part here is important. And not that the rest of this was not important. But if you haven't seen my classes on this, your website, and it doesn't matter if it's an EXP website, a Keller Williams website, a Coldwell Banker website, it doesn't matter. Your website, which uses something called IDX, the Internet Data Exchange, is not as good of a search engine as the MLS. And the reason is your website only searches the listings that are in your MLS. And even if you're in MetroList, which is a great big area, there are listings in MetroList from outside of MetroList. I know agents in Silicon Valley that have listings in MetroList territory, but they never put it in MetroList. They only put it in the Silicon Valley MLS, which means your IDX search does not show those listings. So the MLS is better than your website. But that's not the problem. The problem is Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com and Homes.com, they're better than the MLS most of the time. Why would that be? Because the MLS has allied MLSs, where if I do a search in MetroList, it'll show all of the listings that come from MetroList and all of the MLSs we're allied with, but we're not allied with all the MLSs. And there are some MLSs like Fresno and some of the others that aren't allied with anybody. And so they won't show up in my MLS search. Right? They won't show up. Now, I'm not saying there's a lot of them, but there's some. And you don't want to miss homes that you're showing to a buyer. Which means that Zillow, how does Zillow have them? Because Zillow joined every MLS, including the one in Fresno and Tulare County and Kings County and all those other little counties where they don't cooperate with the big MLSs. They've joined them all. So they dump all the listings together, which means they're going to have properties that your MLS may not have. So my suggestion is, if you want to keep the client, two things. One is whenever you've got a buyer that's hot, and you understand you're not going to have 10 of them, right? You're only going to have, because you can't work with that many buyers at any one time. You're going to want to set up a Zillow search and take a look at it and see, are there any properties that Zillow has found? And by the way, sometimes our PR can find them too. but Zillow seems to be better at this. But you might want to cross-reference to see, are there any listings in San Jose that are not showing up in the MLS, but are showing up in Zillow and some of the other portals? Because if you see them, you're going to want to, don't say to the buyer, well, no, that property's not really for sale. I just checked the MLS. It's not there. It's not for, you're about to lose a client, right? Because they're going to call Zillow and Zillow's going to say, yeah, that property's for sale. When would you like to see it? That brings up point number 2. You need to have a conversation. When you find a property you like online, here's what you do. Take a screenshot and send it to us. We'll handle the details. We'll gather all the property information, schedule showings that fit your schedule, provide necessary disclosure and reports, offer a professional valuation based upon market data. And I say, you're going to see a picture of a real estate agent next to that listing. And it's going to say, for more information or to schedule a showing, call, and they'll have the name of the agent. You might be thinking that's the listing agent. That's not the listing agent. This is deceptive advertising. That's simply an agent who's paid Zillow money for advertising placement, and they're trying to redirect you to that agent because the agent is paid to get that redirect. Remember, agents not listed on property websites are often not the actual listing agents. They just paid for advertising, don't have any special access for information about the property. By working with us, you'll get accurate and comprehensive information along with personalized service from our dedicated team. So just take that screenshot and let us take care of the rest. Will that work for you? Will you do that? Right? If you don't have even if you have this conversation, sometimes you lose them because they can just click on it. It's so tempting. And then there's an agent right there. It's so tempting. But if you don't even have this conversation, you're going to lose buyers. Right. Now, in the EXP Marketing Center, the questionnaires I already showed you, trusted vendors, I'm putting together a list too. It's taking a lot longer than I expected. But one of the things that you're going to need as part of your value proposition is that inspectors. Property inspectors, termite inspectors, roof inspectors. You need pool inspectors. You need to know who fixes and sells home, air conditioning equipment, HVAC, and all you need all that. And how would you find it? Well, you could, if you're at EXP, go into the workplace and say, I'm in Windsor, California. Who would you recommend? And people will say, oh, I use so and so. I use so and so. Right, and then you can start to put together a list. As you get more sophisticated, you want vendors that are going to refer business to you. But right now, you're going to need somebody that will paint a house, move garbage, do landscaping, fix a plumbing leak, do electrical work. You're going to need a handy person, right? Of course, there's apps for that. And the roadmap is a EXP roadmap. Now, just to give you guys a part of the things that I'm working on in our long version is because I don't have a social life and I have a lot of free time on my hands. I put together a list of 43 negotiable terms in the residential purchase contract. 43. And so when we get to the point where we're talking to what we're going to do for them, they might think that filling out the purchase contract is a really easy thing to do, and there aren't a lot of difficult questions. Those of you that are new agents that have tried to do this for the first time realize that's not true. There are a lot of hard questions. So this is a list of all the different parts of the residential purchase agreement that we could negotiate for you. Now, the question is, do you want to have your own agent helping you negotiate these 43 points? Or do you want the agent who represents the seller and is legally obligated to negotiate the highest price and best terms for the seller? Do you want them doing this and making suggestions? Just saying. All right. How am I doing? It got longer. Yeah, I know, I was in the thing yesterday too. But no, I'm not gonna talk about it now. Yes, I was in the new form, just it's getting longer. There might be more than 43, but this will do. This will do. Agent activities is a document I put together. Again, it's being incorporated into my long version. And what I was doing here is putting together, you'll see EXP has a list of things agents do, right? You'll see that that's all over the internet. I didn't add, I could number them differently so I could add them all up, but there are a lot of things here. So what I've done is I've created a list of what real estate agents do, broken down by the different phases of the roadmap, right? All the way, of the different things we do. What else? I also have put together a home value proposition that those of you that are on the team could use. If you're not on the team, you're not allowed to use it. I don't know how to stop you, but anyhow, and some of this is going to talk about, knowing people that do stuff, right? Which would be a good idea that people that'll do stuff. All right. That's what I've got for today. By Tuesday, I'm going to have the long version, the booklet together. I've been collecting information from title companies, lenders, or whatever to create the folder that you can share. I'm going to have scripts for each of the pages of the long version of this, the more detailed version. And we're going to practice. There'll also be, and then that's next Tuesday. Next Thursday, Ron Ricard, who is an expert on tax deferred exchanges, Delaware statutory trusts, and that sort of stuff, is going to talk about the investor angle. Because if you're talking to an investor, it's a different conversation than a first-time home buyer. And then the following week on Thursday, we're going to have a guest speaker, the broker of eXp Realty, Deborah Penny, is going to talk about the buyer broker agreements. We're going to be in California using the eXp national agreements because they're a lot easier to use than the California Association of Realtors forms. A lot easier to use. I sat through the CAR lawyers explaining, Monica is spotlighted herself. I sat through the California Association of Realtors lawyers explaining their new buyer broker agreements. And yeah, it's going to be tougher explaining those to buyers than the one that, the eXp is written. And so we're going to discuss how you can use those. They're softer, kinder, shorter, less complicated. Any
Thanks.
questions?
I have a couple questions. This is Elena. When you go to your buyer consultation, you bring the buyer agreement with you and have them initial and sign right then and there if they agree?
Yes.
Okay.
How about that? The
And then-
ones from eXp are easier to do that. If you don't have, by the way, a good scanning app on your phone, document scanner on your phone, I would recommend one. If you watched all of my videos, which I'm not recommending, you'll see me, banging on about it. But Microsoft Office, yes, Microsoft Office has a free program that you can download on either an Apple or an Android phone. And they have one of the best free document scanners. It's a scanner on the phone made to scan documents. And then it'll turn them into a PNG or a PDF and make them shareable right then. The reason I'm mentioning this is that I'm sure you all know that the California Business and Professions Code says that if a real estate agent has a client sign a document, you have to give them a copy of the document at the time of signing. I know you all know that. Right, so if you could take 2 copies of the buyer representation agreement and sign them both. You could do 1 copy. You could let them have the original, I guess, but you could The app, by the way, is called Microsoft Office. It's by that little company that made, computers, software. And if you, when I open up Office, this is a free program. You're saying, well, I don't want to buy Microsoft Office. You don't have to buy Microsoft Office. So when I open up my Android, one of the choices is Capture. And when I click on Capture, one of the choices is Scan. And if I'm pointing it at a document, it'll start to make a box around that document. It'll analyze what it's looking at and say, oh, there's a document in front of me. And once it's made the box and you click on it, it then scans the document, flattens it all out, straightens it all up, converts it into a PDF. Now, there are a lot of great scanners for phone. I'm just saying, it's called Microsoft Office. Microsoft.
Thank you.
It's an unknown company with a never heard of before software program.
So one more question. I'm working on my personal vendor list and list of partners. And so if I have a client before that, I have all those partners listed, does EX have like suggestions for different areas? Because I'm down
Sure.
here.
So how would you find, I get asked this question a lot, you can go to Workplace into your area and type in, I'm looking for a termite inspector, and you put in the name of the city and hit enter.
Okay,
Or you could go to this other website, Google, and you could type in termite inspectors in, San Diego. And you're going to, there, and then you also could go to this other program, this other website called Yelp, and you could type in termite inspectors in San Diego. And then you get to read the reviews, and you could pick one. They're not that big of a difference between them.
okay, thank you.
And by the way, just as an example, one of the agents that I work with in Monterey was saying, we have this thing with Curbio, which will come and fix stuff before it sells, and bill escrow. And Curbio said, well, we don't work in Monterey, it's too far away. And so he asked me, what do I do? And I said, you go to Google. I did this while I was talking to him, and you say contractors that bill escrow in Monterey. And there's like 5 contractors who their pitch is, hey, if you want to fix up your house to sell it, let me know. I'll do the work and bill escrow. There was like 5 of them that were there. So if you spent, a little bit of time, you could, read the reviews, you could ask on Workplace, but anything you're missing, it would be easy to find. Right? Using the internet. All right. I hope that was fun. Sorry that I checked out for a while. Microsoft Office, yes.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. Bye.
Thank you.